Hey. Subscribe and make sure to read the story to the end, then share your thoughts in the comments. You don't need loud arguments or mascara on a shirt to sense something's wrong in a marriage. Sometimes it's subtler than that. Subtler and more calculated, like the way your wife starts password protecting her phone, or how she suddenly develops a passion for extended meetings that stretch late into the evening, or how she swaps her soft coral lipstick for striking scarlet. Even for a quick coffee with the crew, Emily had always been stunning, but never ostentatious. That was part of what pulled me to her initially. She didn't need to be bold to stand out. She could step into a room in sweatpants and a messy bun and still command it. But recently, she was different. Not just more refined, but deliberately put together. Her wardrobe changed, more stilettos, more fitted blouses. Her hair was always styled now, always flawless. She'd say things like, "Gotta look polished for the clients." But we both knew it wasn't about clients. I just didn't know who it was for. I started noticing the small details. Not because I'm paranoid, but because quiet heightens your awareness. The kind of quiet that creeps between two people who used to share everything and now struggle to get through a meal without glancing at their screens. Her phone became an extension of her arm. Always face down, always close by, even at 2 a.m. Once, I caught her grinning at the screen while flossing her teeth, unaware I was watching. The way her lips curved, the warmth in her gaze, it wasn't for me. I hadn't seen that smile in ages. I asked her once, casually, "Who's got you smiling like that?" She blinked, then flashed a stiff little smirk and said, "Oh, just one of the girls from the office." You wouldn't know her. That response lingered. You wouldn't know her, maybe I didn't, but I was starting to know someone else. Ethan Caldwell, her boss. Ethan, 38, had been around for a few years. The guy had charm cranked to maximum, leading man looks, overly self-assured. One of those handshakes that felt like a dare. I'd met him a few times, company dinners, holiday gatherings, even once at a team happy hour at a local taproom. Always cordial, always smooth, and always a bit much. The kind of guy who complimented Emily a little too smoothly, laughed a little too heartily, rested his hand on her shoulder a little too frequently. But Emily never stepped back. She'd laugh too. She'd linger in those tiny, asterisk-marked moments you only share with someone when you've already crossed a line in your mind, even if your actions haven't caught up yet. And maybe that's what made it so hard to confront, because nothing I saw was technically damning, but it felt off. You can't really accuse someone of emotional infidelity, can you? Still, the moment it all snapped into focus, the moment the murmur of doubt hardened into certainty, was the gala. It was a company fundraiser, a night of sophistication, which meant dressy enough for Instagram but relaxed enough for whiskey breath. Emily, 35, spent 3 hours primping, and when she emerged from the bedroom, I forgot how to form words. She wore a burgundy gown I'd never seen before, one of those dresses that stops time. My first thought wasn't even about how breathtaking she looked. It was wondering who she wore it for. I stood beside her in the elevator, stealing glances. She smelled like jasmine and something edgier. New perfume, not the one I gave her last Valentine's Day. When we reached the venue, it was all dim lighting, soft jazz, and tailored tuxes. Everyone acting like they weren't trying to impress anyone. Emily's colleagues glided through the room like it was a performance. And then there was Ethan. He sauntered over with a scotch in one hand and that trademark grin of his. "There's the belle of the ball," he said, eyes fixed on Emily, as if I, James, 37, wasn't even there. She flushed, not overtly, not theatrically, but I knew her well enough to catch it. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and giggled in that airy way that used to be mine. We made small talk, the three of us. He complimented my jacket. She chuckled at something he said that wasn't amusing. And then, right in front of me, he rested his hand on the small of her back as she turned to grab a flute of champagne from a passing tray. She didn't tense, didn't step away. Her body tilted toward his, just a fraction, but enough. That's when I stopped pretending I didn't see it. I excused myself to the bar a few steps away and ordered a drink I didn't need. I stood there, watching them as they laughed and mingled and flirted. And it wasn't in my head. I saw him lean in too close. I saw her fingers graze his sleeve as she whispered something only he could hear. I watched a married woman act like she wasn't one. And it wasn't just her. I caught some of her colleagues glancing over too. No one said a word, of course. No one ever does. People just look, exchange a knowing glance, and keep nursing their drinks. I could have made a scene. Could have marched over and asked Ethan if his wife knew where his hands were tonight. Could have pulled Emily aside and demanded answers. But I didn't. I just smiled, because I'd seen enough, because something in me had shifted. Because the smartest plays are made quietly. And I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make my move next, and it was going to be sharper than anything they anticipated. The shift came 2 days later. It wasn't cinematic, no smoking gun, no hidden camera footage, no cologne-stained collar. Just a ping. A single notification from Emily's laptop while she was upstairs sorting laundry. She'd left it open on the kitchen island, something she rarely did anymore. I wasn't crying, or so I told myself. I was just getting a glass of water. But when that screen lit up, I looked. Instinct, really. The message preview was brief, just a few words, but it was enough to make my stomach lurch. Asterisk Ethan Caldwell, still thinking about Saturday. That burgundy dress. Wow, asterisk I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. My eyes stayed glued to that glowing screen for a few seconds, long enough to sear every word into my brain. My throat tightened. I stood there, glass in hand, hearing the faint creak of floorboards upstairs, laundry being shuffled, her humming softly like she hadn't just obliterated the last thread of plausible deniability. I should have stormed up there and confronted her, demanded the truth. Maybe I would have a year ago. But that night, something in me solidified. I stepped out to the back patio instead, sat on the bench, and stared into the dark. She was cheating on me, or about to, or already had. Honestly, at that point, did the specifics matter? But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to play the scorned husband drowning his sorrows in bourbon. I wasn't going to plead for her to confess or ask if she still loved me. I was done being the fool. What I needed was strategy, a plan, a way to channel this hurt into something productive. And that's when I thought of Lauren Caldwell, Ethan's wife. We'd met once, maybe twice, at a corporate retreat Emily had dragged me to. Lauren, 36, had been there with Ethan, composed and reserved, all understated gloss and courteous smiles. The type of woman who noticed everything but never let you know what she was thinking. I remembered how she'd shaken my hand, firm, no fluff. The kind of woman who didn't get caught off guard. I figured she'd want to know. It didn't take much to find her. I had Lauren's full name from that retreat, and Ethan's company wasn't exactly discreet about listing their team online. A few clicks later, I had her direct line at the firm, but I paused. Calling her there felt like crossing a line I wasn't sure I was ready for, so I dug deeper. Found an old professional profile with a personal email and a phone number. I stared at my phone for a long time, thumb hovering over the call button. This was it, the point of no return. If I dialed, everything changed. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore. It was about setting the whole game board ablaze and seeing who scrambled. I hit call. It rang twice. Hello. A woman's voice, steady, composed. Hi, I said, my voice tighter than I'd hoped. This is, we met at that corporate retreat last year. I'm James, Emily's husband. A brief pause on the other end. I remember, she said finally. I cleared my throat, unsure how to begin. I know this is odd. Believe me, I wouldn't be calling if I wasn't certain. But I think you and I need to talk. Still no alarm in her voice. Just, okay. About what? It's about your husband, Ethan, and my wife. Another beat of silence. Then, when and where? We agreed on a neutral spot, quiet, discreet, a small riverside cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. She didn't ask for details. She didn't sound surprised, just determined. It was as if part of her had already suspected, just like I had. The next morning, I arrived early, took a corner seat with a view of the water, and waited. I didn't know what to expect, fury, tears, icy detachment. But when Lauren walked in, she was none of those things. She came in wearing khakis, a charcoal sweater, and no makeup. Her hair was pulled back into a simple ponytail. No pretense, no shield. She looked like someone braced for the truth, no matter how much it would sting. We didn't bother with small talk, just a nod and a quiet, "Thanks for meeting me." I laid it out for her. Not everything, not yet. Just the key points, the lipstick, the texts, the gala, the message I saw on Emily's laptop. I watched her closely as I spoke, searching for cracks in that calm exterior. But Lauren just listened, steady, no theatrics, no interruptions. When I finished, she took a sip of her coffee and said, "He's done this before." That hit harder than I expected. I blinked. "Seriously?" She nodded. 6 years ago. Different woman, same patterns. We did counseling. He swore he'd changed. I trusted him. Her lips twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Foolish, right?" "No," I said. "Not foolish." She looked at me for a long moment. "Do you have proof?" "Not concrete evidence," I admitted. "Just signs. A lot of them. But I'm betting if we dig, we'll find more." She nodded, then leaned in, voice low. "Okay, then let's find it together." That was the moment everything shifted. I didn't feel alone anymore. This wasn't just my burden now, it was hers too. Two people betrayed by the same deception, sitting across from each other, deciding they wouldn't let it slide. We stayed there for over an hour, swapping timelines, comparing stories. She told me about Ethan's business trips. I told her about Emily's weekend projects. Everything started to click, like puzzle pieces snapping into place. We weren't sure what we'd do next, but we knew we had to act, not out of spite, not to cause chaos, but because we needed the full truth and maybe, just maybe, to make them sweat. When we stood to leave, she said something that stuck with me. "I'm not here to ruin their lives for kicks," Lauren said. "But I do believe in accountability. You don't get to treat people like this and walk away unscathed." And I agreed, because I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused, calm, ready. This wasn't about rage. It was about reclaiming control. And we were about to do just that. The plan came together faster than I expected. Once Lauren and I were on the same page, everything moved with an eerie precision. Maybe it was because we were both so used to bottling up our feelings, keeping it together for the sake of appearances, for our marriages, for whatever fragile version of normal we'd been clinging to. But now, with nothing left to preserve, we were free to see everything with stark clarity. It started with timing. Ethan's company was hosting their annual investors' ball, black tie, high stakes, all the glitz and glamour you'd expect from a firm wooing people to trust them with millions. Emily had mentioned it casually a week earlier, framing it as a routine work duty. "Just the usual networking," she'd said. "You don't have to come if you don't want to. It's dull." Back then, I might have bought it. Now I could see her game, setting the stage, ensuring I stayed far away from whatever she had planned that night, or more accurately, whoever. Lauren already had her ticket. Spouses of senior partners were expected to attend, but I wasn't officially invited, which made it more intriguing. Lauren made a quick call to a contact in the events team. A +1 was added to her name without a second thought. After all, she was still Ethan's wife. She still had the charm, the access, and I was just a guest. Nobody worth noticing. She suggested we make an entrance. No drama, no confrontation, just presence. Let them feel the slow simmer. Let them squirm in their designer suits and sparkling gowns. We wouldn't need to say a word, they'd know exactly why we were there. The night of the ball, I stood in front of the mirror, knotting a black bow tie with hands that felt steadier than they should have. I'd expected nerves, maybe even a flicker of guilt, but all I felt was clarity, not anger, not sorrow, just a strange calm that came from knowing I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't the fool they painted me as in hushed texts and stolen glances. When I picked Lauren up, she was waiting outside her house, illuminated by the streetlight. She wore a deep emerald dress, sleek and understated, paired with bold crimson lipstick that somehow made her look more formidable than refined. She didn't smile when she slid into the car, and neither did I. We didn't need to talk. We were beyond words. The hotel hosting the ball was downtown, one of those historic buildings with chandeliers the size of SUVs and walls that reeked of wealth. We walked in side by side, arms linked like we'd done it 1,000 times. And something shifted the moment we stepped inside. I felt at first, a dip in the room's energy, like the temperature dropped a few degrees. People were chatting, sipping drinks, nodding politely, and then they weren't. One by one, conversations stuttered. Eyes turned, heads tilted. It wasn't instant, but it was noticeable. Emily was at the far end of the ballroom, near the bar, laughing at something. She hadn't seen us yet. Ethan was with her, of course, positioned just close enough to be intimate without raising suspicion. But even from across the room, I could see the way her body angled toward him, the way his hand lingered near her hip, not quite touching, but close enough. Lauren and I didn't stop walking. We moved through the crowd slowly, like we belonged, because we did. The betrayal hadn't stripped that from us. Then Emily turned. Her smile froze mid-laugh. Her eyes landed on me, and I watched the color drain from her face so fast I thought she might collapse. She blinked, like she wasn't sure if I was real or a mirage. Her hand dropped from the bar. She stepped back half a pace. Ethan noticed the shift, followed her gaze, and there it was, the reaction I'd hoped for. He tensed, his jaw tightened. His posture shifted into something forced, guarded, defensive. Neither of them moved toward us. Lauren and I didn't move toward them either. We stopped near one of the high cocktail tables, just close enough to be seen. We didn't speak. We didn't wave. I picked up a glass of wine from a passing tray and handed it to Lauren. She nodded, took a sip, and surveyed the room like it was any other Saturday night. But it wasn't. Not for them. Emily looked like she wanted to bolt. Her hand reached for her purse like it might tether her to the floor. Ethan leaned in and muttered something low, his eyes flicking between Lauren and me. She didn't respond, didn't blink, didn't breathe, from the looks of it. I watched the cracks start to form. It wasn't loud. It wasn't messy. But it was real. People noticed, the ones who mattered, anyway. The hushed whispers started in the corners of the room, passed between colleagues and clients. Glances turned into double takes. The kind of collective realization that makes everyone wonder if they missed something critical. And they had. They'd missed all of it, the months of pretense, the quiet shift in loyalties, the late-night messages, the slowly fraying threads of two separate marriages colliding in the center of a ballroom draped in fairy lights. Emily finally took a step forward. Just one, then another. Her mouth parted slightly, like she was about to call my name. I turned my back to her. Ethan didn't move. We didn't need to do anything else. The damage was already spreading. Lauren leaned in and whispered, "They look like they've seen phantoms." I smiled at that, even if it didn't reach my eyes. Better. We stayed for 20 more minutes, just long enough to let it all sink in, to share a few laughs, to let people notice. To let rumors do what they do best, spread fast and ruin everything. Emily never approached me. Neither did Ethan. Cowards always freeze when the spotlight hits. When we finally left, the ballroom was humming with that low, uneasy buzz. People didn't know what was happening, but they knew something was. And Emily and Ethan, they knew exactly what was happening. As we stepped into the lobby, Lauren said, "Next move's yours." I looked straight ahead. "No, it's theirs. Let's see what they do when they're out of excuses." And we walked out into the night, leaving them to figure out just how bad it was about to get. The morning after the ball, the silence in our house felt like it had claws. Emily didn't come home that night, which wasn't a shock. I didn't call her, didn't text. I just waited. I brewed a pot of coffee like any other Sunday, sat at the table, and watched the steam rise from the mug while the clock ticked too loudly in the background. She walked in just after 11 a.m., still in the burgundy dress, makeup smudged, eyes puffy. I didn't get up. She stopped just inside the doorway, like a kid who knew she'd already flunked the exam. "James," she said, her voice hoarse, barely audible. "Can we talk?" I didn't respond, just took a sip of my coffee and stared out the window. She stood there for a while, arms wrapped around herself, waiting, probably hoping I'd shout, cry, do something to make me look more shattered than she felt. But I didn't give her that. I just let her feel it. That's when she started to break. "I didn't know you'd be there," she said. "I swear, I wasn't trying to." "Don't," I cut in, finally turning to look at her. My voice was flat, hollow. "Please don't insult both of us by pretending that was just chance." Her jaw tightened. She looked down at her shoes. "It's not what you think." I stood up slowly, no rush, walked to the sink, and poured out the rest of my coffee. The clink of the ceramic mug was louder than it should have been in the stillness. "Then what is it, Emily? Enlighten me." "I didn't sleep with him," she said quickly. "I mean, things got too close. It was emotional, a flirtation, but we didn't," she caught herself, paused. "We didn't cross that line." I laughed once, low and sharp. "You think that matters to me?" She moved toward me, hands outstretched like she wanted to grab mine. I stepped back. "I messed up," she said. "I know I did, but we can fix this. I just need, James, I need you to talk to me." "You don't need me," I said. "You had Ethan for that." Her face crumpled. "That wasn't real." "It never was." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "But this used to be." I left her standing in the kitchen and walked out of the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't raise my voice. I think that rattled her more than anything. Later that afternoon, I got a text from Lauren. "You free?" I replied, "Yes." She sent an address, her place. I didn't hesitate. When I got there, she answered the door with a weary smile. No makeup, sweatshirt and jeans, no pretense, just like before. She waved me inside without a word. Her house was quiet, immaculate, the kind of place where emotions didn't linger unless invited. She handed me a beer and gestured toward the couch. We sat in silence for a bit. It wasn't awkward, just weighty. "Did he talk?" I asked finally. She nodded slowly. "Ethan came home at 3 a.m. Didn't even try to lie. He knew." I didn't say anything. Just watched him dig his own grave. "Emily tried the denial route," I said. "Claimed it wasn't physical." Lauren smirked, took a sip. "Of course she did. That's the first page in the cheater's handbook." I leaned back against the cushion. "They're panicking." "They should be." We sat for another moment before she reached into the drawer of her coffee table and pulled out a flash drive, setting it down in front of me like it weighed a ton. "What's that?" I asked. "Insurance," she said. "I had a hunch a few weeks ago." Started pulling records, email threads, company logs. "There's stuff on there that'd get both of them canned if it got out." I stared at it, didn't touch it. "I'm not saying we use it," Lauren added. "Just, it's good to have." I picked it up finally, turned it over in my hand. "You're a lot more prepared than I am." She shrugged. "I've had practice." We didn't talk much after that. I stayed a little longer than I meant to. When I left, she stood in the doorway, arms crossed against the chill, and said, "Let them come to us now. Let's see how they handle being the ones left in the dark." I nodded, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. That night, Emily tried again. She knocked on the door to the guest room, my new room, and said, "Can we please talk?" I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "I just want to know where we stand," she said. "If there's a chance, any chance." I looked at her, really looked at her, this woman I'd loved for years, who I used to know better than anyone. And all I saw was someone I didn't trust. Couldn't. "I don't have an answer for you," I said. "I don't even know what this is anymore." She looked down, biting her lip. "I want to make it right." "You can't." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't move. "You think I'm a monster," she whispered. "I think you're a stranger." She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away without another word. And that should have felt like a win, but it didn't. Not really. 2 days later was the company-wide quarterly meeting. Usually tedious, full of metrics and corporate jargon. But this one would be unforgettable. I got a text that morning from Lauren. "Watch this space," that was all she said. I knew what she meant. I didn't go to the office, but I had the internal link. I pulled up the stream on my laptop, heart pounding, and waited. The presentation started as usual, charts, polite clapping. Then the screen glitched. Suddenly, instead of revenue forecasts, a new slide appeared. A screenshot of Ethan's email. Subject: Saturday night plans, Emily's name in the body. Flirty language, no mistaking it. Gasps from the audience were audible even through the stream. The presenter, some poor mid-level manager caught in the crossfire, stammered, but the slide didn't change. Next slide. A photo. Ethan and Emily, lobby security footage from the hotel after the ball. His hand on her waist, hers on his chest, both laughing. Next slide. A memo. A formal letter from Lauren to the board. Allegations: misuse of company funds, conflicts of interest. She'd CC'd legal. I sat there, stunned, not because it was happening, but because it was real. The fallout had begun. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and let the silence settle. There was nothing left to do. Lauren had just lit the fuse. Now all we had to do was let it burn.